Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another Logan Blackman Show YouTube video. If you can tell by the title and if you saw the last video, you would know that this video is going over our 2024-2025 NFC season predictions. Go make sure to check out the AFC prediction video down in the description below. Also make sure to link it on screen. And while you're down in the description, make sure to check out all the different links to Logan Blackman Show social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Make sure to go to the LoganBlackmanShow.com. We'll have Mock Draft 2.0 out for you on Monday. Video will be out next Saturday, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And without any further delay, I'm not going to do any long-winded intro today. I'm freaking tired. I want this video to get done with. I just need this thing to get done. So without further ado, let's just get right into this. Obviously, we're going in alphabetical order, north, south, east, west. We're going to start with the NFC North, and that means we are going to start off with the Chicago Bears, one of the teams that had a shitload of hype at the beginning of the season because they drafted Caleb Williams first overall, one of the most highly touted prospects in recent memory. They paired him with Roma Dunze with the 9th overall pick. And I said this in the preview that I always like when teams pair young quarterbacks and young wide receivers together, or draft a quarterback and a wide receiver the same year. Like, you look at Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. You look at Andy Dalton and AJ Green, just as a couple examples there. Like, it's nice to have that chemistry early on. Like, you came in at the same time. You're learning everything new together. You're going to build that relationship. At least that's the hope, is that you build that relationship. But apart from those two, you also had the likes of Keenan Allen you brought in from LA. You had DJ Moore still there as well. DeAndre Swift was there. We brought it up as well that I wasn't really sold on DeAndre Swift or the offensive line. Like, they were both good pieces, but they weren't like things that were going to get you over the top. Like, I remember seeing in the preseason about people on big-time media networks talking about how this team had Super Bowl aspirations. Like, the ceiling for this team is Super Bowl. And I was like, okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like, we're always about now this instant gratification thing, because every time a rookie quarterback does good, like CJ Stroud last year, the ones that follow have to be even better. So it's gonna take a while for things to really click. They fired Matt Eberflus, obviously, this season. They brought in Ben Johnson from Detroit, which is a massive, massive hire. So we'll see how Ben Johnson does in Chicago. We'll see how they attack their first draft this year. Yeah, all in all, the Bears season, from the hype that they got in the preseason, it didn't really match what happened on the field for a multitude of different reasons. But Caleb Williams, I thought, played well. I thought he played all right. I don't think he played anywhere near as bad as what a lot of people are making it out to be. He set Bears single-season passing records for rookies. Like, he had a good year despite the Bears struggling as much as they did. They obviously finished 5-12 on the year, but I had them going 9-8. And to be honest, at that point in time, I thought I was going low, but 9-8 was my prediction. 5-12 was obviously their record, so we're not within that 2-game range that we talked about in the AFC preview. And that trend is going to continue on with the Detroit Lions here as well. The Lions, they're like the expectations for the Detroit Lions are so funny, because where we were a decade ago, it's so crazy to think about that we are looking at this team as one of the perennial powerhouses in the NFC. Sure, they ended up getting blown out in the divisional round by the Washington Commanders this postseason, but they finished the regular season 15-2. And given all the injuries that they had on the defensive side of the ball, namely Aiden Hutchinson in that game against the Dallas Cowboys, like, to battle back from that and still finish with only 2 losses is really damn impressive. Jared Goff was a legit MVP candidate for portion of the season. Jahmyr Gibbs went off this year, especially after the injury to David Montgomery. You also had Amon-Ra St. Brown this year. Sam Laporta did not necessarily have the greatest statistical season of all time following his fantastic rookie year. All in all, the Lions just kicked ass. They just did. I had them going 12-5 this year, so not 15-2, but like the Chiefs that we talked about, we had them going 12-5 as well. If you just flip the 5 and the 2 around, we can count it. We can count it, right? But no, the Lions are just a really good team. And obviously, Ben Johnson, we talked about him going to Chicago. Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, who I thought, again, did a really good job of rallying the troops. After everybody went down with injuries during the season on the defense side of the ball, he went back to the Jets. We'll see how they replace those guys, but expectations for the Lions are still going to be up there. They're a damn talented team, and they proved it this year. And then a team that also had pretty high expectations. This whole division, for the most part, had pretty high expectations going into the year, and that's the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, Jordan Love, coming off his first year as the full-time starter in Green Bay, had a really nice year. Got hurt in the first game of the year down in the Brazil game against the Philadelphia Eagles, so there was question marks about his long-term health. Christian Watkins battled some injuries throughout the course of the season as well. Josh Jacobs, who they brought in from Vegas, was freaking awesome this year. So the Packers, they were weird. They were really weird. I don't know how else I could put that other than they're a weird team. Like, they have so much talent. They have they don't have a number one receiver, but all their receivers are talented. Like, you look at Wicks, You look at Reed, you look at Dobbs, you look at the tight ends and Kraft and Musgrave. Like, they've got talent on this roster along with Jordan Love that we mentioned before. Like, the loss to the Bears in the last week of the regular season, I know that was like, it didn't really count for anything, but it's still weird to go like, you ended the season losing to a bad Bears team. That was like the Bears' first win in God knows how many weeks. The defensive side of the ball, they're all right. Jair Alexander battled injuries again this year, as he does seemingly every single year, so his future is a little bit up in question. But unlike the previous two, where I didn't get the record within the 2-point range or the 2-game range, I got the Packers within exactly. I got the Packers within exactly of their range. We had them going 11-6. They finished with an 11-6 record. So, you know what? After the first two teams not being that accurate, I will take the Green Bay Packers going 11-6 this year. Now, my postseason prediction for the Packers is a little bit different than what actually ended up happening. So we'll get to the postseason stuff here in a little bit. But the final team in the NFC North is the Minnesota Vikings. This team, I made sure to acknowledge in the preview that they have talent. Like, all over the roster, they have talent. You obviously got the likes of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. They brought in Aaron Jones this offseason. TJ Hawkinson was there still. The defensive side of the ball, like Harrison Smith, is still there. They have good players. They drafted Dallas Turner with their second first-round pick this year. They have Byron Murphy in there at the nickelback. Like, they have a lot of talent on this team. But for some reason, or I don't know for some, I know for some reason, that some reason is not the right word, because I know what my reasoning was behind it. I just didn't think they'd be at this level. Like, Sam Darnold having the season that he did was not expected. I thought Sam Darnold would do all right. I didn't think Sam Darnold would be a complete dumpster fire. Like, he just needed time to regain his confidence. Sam Darnold's a very confidence-based player. He was completely shattered throughout his time with the Jets. He went down to the Carolina Panthers. Then they brought in the guy that was drafted first overall in his draft to replace him. So then he goes to San Francisco and is the backup to Mr. Irrelevant. And that was a nice, like, reset year for Sam Darnold, where he can just sit behind Brock Purdy, not really worry about playing, and kind of rebuild his confidence and go to a team like Minnesota with the coaching staff with Kevin O'Connell there, Brian Flores on the defensive side of the ball with the weapons around him, a good offensive line as well with Christian Darrisaw. Like, he could be good. But again, this good was not what I was expecting. And after they drafted J.J. McCarthy, 10th overall, which I really like that draft pick, and I'm intrigued to see how they handle the quarterback situation this offseason. Like, just all of that being said, it's like, man, you should have thought the Vikings would be a lot better. Like, they finished 14-3 this year. I thought they finished 7-10. If you remember all the things that happened this offseason with the Minnesota Vikings, I'm not going to go over all of them here with you right now, but there were just so many different distractions, it felt like, with Minnesota. And there were some injuries involved in there as well. J.J. McCarthy's injury, I think I might have, did I record the video before the preseason or after the I can't remember exactly when I recorded it, but it just felt like the talent was there. The talent was there, but I just thought there were distractions that happened preseason that would affect them into the season. Obviously, that didn't. Like, they literally doubled the wins that I thought they would get this year. And that prediction, I think I said it at the time too, was like, I'm being incredibly harsh. So we'll see. We'll see how they continue on to next year. But yeah, definitely nowhere near the 2-game allotment here. I mean, 14-3, losing the last game of the regular season, the Detroit Lions, losing the Rams in the first round of the playoffs. But man, they were a good team. They were a damn good team. Way better than my 7-10 prediction. But for the NFC North, it reads as follows. So the Bears, obviously, again, finished 5-12. I had them going 9-8. You look at the Detroit Lions, 15-2, had them going 12-5. The Green Bay Packers, 11-6. Spot on. We will take that every single day. And then the Minnesota Vikings, I had them going 7-10. They finished 14-3. Shout out to Sam Darnold, man. I just got to give a shout out to Sam Darnold for how he played this year. That's really impressive stuff. But moving on to the next division, we got North, South. Go down to the NFC South. We got the Atlanta Falcons here. Marred in controversy this offseason as well. They brought in Kirk Cousins to a big-time contract coming off a torn Achilles that he had in Minnesota. And with that contract in place, they still drafted Michael Penix Jr. from Washington with the 8th overall pick. And they were comparing it to the likes of the Packers drafting Jordan Love with Aaron Rodgers still there. But it really wasn't the same because the Packers drafted Jordan Love at like 24 or 25, and Aaron Rodgers has been toying with retirement. Kirk Cousins had not been toying with retirement, and the Atlanta Falcons didn't need to draft a quarterback at the 8th overall. Like, you drafted him 8th, not 25th or 24th. You drafted him 8th overall. Now, it ended up working out in the process because Kirk Cousins got benched later in the season, and Michael Penix came in. He's going to be the starter going into this year. But that's still malpractice. It's still not what you should have done at that point. It's like the 49ers with Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Like, you got bailed out because of Brock Purdy. The only reason the Michael Penix thing is good now is because Kirk Cousins wasn't as advertised. He still wasn't fully recovered, at least mentally, from the Achilles tear. So Michael Penix got the starting nod in there. Bijan Robinson had himself a very nice year in there as well. Defensively, they brought in some pieces. They brought in Matthew Judon. I believe they brought Justin Simmons as well. And Raheem Morris came in with Zach Robinson as the offensive coordinator. And the Falcons, I had them going 10-7. They finished 8-9. This season for the Falcons felt like they could get to that point of getting above 500 and getting to 10 wins, but they just kept messing up at like the most random times throughout the course of the season to finish with this below 500 record. It's a disappointing record. I thought they would win the division. Clearly they did not. Like, at least in the NFC North, like, sure, the Bears and Vikings records were wrong, but at least I had the Lions winning the division. I at least hold my head high with that. The team I predicted to win the division finished 8-9 this year. That's not ideal, and we'll see where Kirk Cousins goes as well this offseason. That's going to be something to watch out for, as well as if the Falcons actually address the edge rusher position in the draft. That'll be another key area to look at as well. But the next team on this list is the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young had an interesting year. Let's just put it like that. The expectations that were on him this year were for the how good of a team the Panthers were on paper. Expectations for Bryce Young were pretty high because, again, like we talked about before with CJ Stroud having as good of a rookie season as he did, like there were people talking about during portions of the season, even the preseason, about this being one of the worst trades of all time when the Panthers moved it to 9-1 to take Bryce Young in the 2023 NFL draft. Like, people are actually having those discussions, but not looking at the fact their offensive line's horrific. Their offense, their passing offense, you have a 800-year-old Adam Thielen at wide receiver who's still productive, but you don't want to rely on that as your number one receiver. So they drafted Xavier Legette in there as well, who was raw. Like, they had pieces somewhat in place, but to expect anything like, oh my God, we got to see a lot from Bryce Young this year, especially with new head coach Canales coming in, it was a little bit, I don't know, I don't want to say asking too much, but he got benched midway through the year for Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, again, returns the favor. So Bryce Young goes back in, and he starts playing really, really well. Like, comparatively to what he was doing at the beginning of the year to what he did the last half of the year, Bryce Young's levels, like, doubled or tripled at that point in time. So he's guaranteed his spot for at least one more season down in Carolina. And as someone who really liked Bryce Young coming out of Alabama, I want to see him do well. I am constantly rooting for Bryce Young. So when he got benched as a neutral, I could give two shits about the Carolina Panthers, but as a neutral, it's like, man, I want to see Bryce Young succeed. And there just didn't feel like there was that opportunity in place. We're just going to keep constantly comparing him with CJ Stroud. Fair or not, those comparisons are always going to be in place. So I'm excited to see what he does next year. How the Panthers attack the draft this year is going to be interesting. They have the 8th overall pick there. Derek Brown will be coming back from injury. Remember, he got hurt week 1, missed the entire season after signing a massive contract. So with him coming back, that'll be big. Canales in his second year as well. So the Panthers, I think, can do better than next season than they did this year, especially if you look at how they started the year with that insane loss to the New Orleans Saints week 1, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the Panthers finished 5-12. I had them going 5-12. So we will take that. So we've gotten 2 records exactly right, and that was the Packers and now the Panthers. So I'll take it. I will take it. And the next team on here is that aforementioned Saints team who blew out the likes of the Panthers and the Cowboys week 2. Dominating games, scoring like 90 points or something in those 2 games, and then winning 3 games the rest of the season. Dennis Allen got fired. Kellen Moore's coming in this offseason to be the new head coach, but the Saints are just a weird team. Like, they're just so devoid of any young talent. That was so insane that they actually were able to break off the start of the season like that. And it turns out neither the Cowboys nor the Panthers are very good. I mean, we knew the Panthers, but that Cowboys game was like, oh, maybe the Saints are a good team. Like, the Cowboys didn't have these low expectations on them. I'm sure there were some people that thought they would dip a little bit from last year, but not to the point of what they did. And we'll talk about Dallas here in a little bit, but Chris Olave battled injuries the entire season. Derek Carr was Derek Carr. We saw Spencer Rattler for a little bit this year. They traded Marshawn Lattimore to Washington midway through the year. So it was just, given what the start of the season was, they did not They did not reach anywhere near those levels the rest of the season. But the Saints, they finished 5-12 after that insane start. I had them going 6-11. So we're within the 2-game limit there. So that's a dub. This is not really going as well as the AFC recap video. But hey, I'll take 3 at this point. And then the next team on here, the final team in the NFC South, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, $100 million man this offseason, signing a new contract with the Bucs. Baker had a great year. That's the least I could say. Baker had a great year. Bucky Irving, the rookie running back from Oregon, also had a fantastic season. Mike Evans battled injuries, but he was still able to eclipse that 1,000-yard mark. I think it was the 11th or 12th time this season. McMillan from Washington, the rookie from Washington, he also had himself a very nice season, but the Bucs were just a good team. They just were. They weren't like anything like insanely flashy or anything, but they were just a good football team. And Baker, there's always that fear when a quarterback's bounced around a little bit, how they look after they've signed that contract. Because I remember, like, in Buffalo, and I love him, but Ryan Fitzpatrick was like, the year before the contract would ball out, and then if you sign him to a long-term deal or at least a good deal, the play started to dip a little bit. So I'm not saying they're direct comparisons, Baker and Ryan Fitzpatrick. And again, I love Ryan Fitzpatrick. I really like Baker Mayfield. So I was happy to see what Baker did this year. I really liked watching what Bucky Irving did as well. That playoff game against Washington in the first round was kind of rough. It was kind of a rough one to watch, but hey, overall, successful season, back-to-back division titles. They finished with a 10-7 record, I believe. Yes, 10-7 record. I had them going 8-9. I wasn't as high on the Buccaneers as I should. I should have flipped. If I flipped the Bucs and the Falcons records this season, I would have gotten this division exactly right, barring one game, which would have been the Saints. Because I had them going 6-11. They finished 5-12. So this division, the Falcons had them going 10-7. They finished 8-9. Then I had the Carolina Panthers 5-12. They finished 5-12. The Saints 6-11. They finished 5-12. And the Bucs, I had to go in 8-9. They finished 10-7. So again, if I just flip those two records around, we got it exactly right, apart from one singular game. That would have been the closest prediction I would have ever gotten to this show. Now, to be fair, I don't really look back at my predictions, so it's kind of fun that we're doing this now. But going on to the next division, North, South, East division, we got the NFC East. We got the Dallas Cowboys kicking things off here. What a mess. That's the main thing. And it all started in the offseason with Jerry Jones proclaiming that they were all in. And they didn't do anything. Like, they didn't do anything. Their biggest move was bringing in Zeke Elliott. That was it. And Zeke hasn't been good for like 3 years. So, like, why was that your big-time move? Like, they were getting linked with, like, Derrick Henry this offseason, and to get Zeke instead, that's not really going to lift fan spirits this offseason. And Mike McCarthy, after the embarrassing loss to the Green Bay Packers, was also brought back when them being linked to, like, some Bill Belichick the season prior. Like, to have him coming back after that loss was not really filling people with joy. But Dak Prescott was an MVP candidate the year before. CeeDee Lamb went off the year before. So there was expectations going into the year, and they just didn't reach them. Dak Prescott obviously got hurt. Cooper Rush had to come in through the season. Did Cooper Rush things. Rico Dowdle finished with 1,000 yards rushing this year. So that's positive, but all in all, it was an insanely disappointing season. They fired Mike McCarthy this year after, or not fired, did he just agree to part ways or something, so nicely fired? But then you denied the Bears to interview Mike McCarthy because he was still your head coach. You denied them that opportunity, and then you fired him or let him resign or whatever a couple days later, and then with all your replacements, all the options you could have had, was Brian Schottenheimer really the best option to replace Mike McCarthy? And if you were going to fire if you were going to hire Brian Schottenheimer, why didn't you just keep it was just a very messy situation. Another thing that just doesn't fill fans' hope up for next season, especially when they announced it was like 11 o'clock at night. The city of Dallas has got a real weird infatuation with announcing things late at night, so hopefully nobody sees it. But yeah, the Cowboys defense also took a giant dip this year. Remember Dan Quinn, went to Washington this offseason, so that team took a massive hit this year. We'll see how Dallas responds this year under Brian Schottenheimer. Matt Eberflus, I believe, is coming in as the defensive coordinator. But the Cowboys, I thought they would go 10-7. They went 7-10. So not the prediction, but just flip the record around, and we'll call it close enough. We'll call it even. We'll call it even. And the next team on here is the New York Football Giants. The whole thing previous offseason was that who do they re-sign, Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley? Hindsight's a beautiful thing, but even at that point in time, why are you paying Daniel Jones that money? Daniel Jones obviously got benched, then he got cut, got signed by the Minnesota Vikings this season as well. Like, it was just a complete and utter train wreck. Now, Tyrone Tracy was a good revelation from Purdue this offseason, so that was a good, nice option at running back, but apart from him, what else did you have? You got Brian Burns this offseason, which was cool, but there was no substance to anything. You battled around with 100 different quarterbacks, whether it was Drew Lock, Tim Boyle, Tommy DeVito, like, you had all that stuff going for you, but Malik Neighbors was really good. Malik Neighbors was freaking awesome. But that was it. Wan'Dale Robinson had a insanely weird number of targets as well, if I remember correctly, or receptions. Like, it was a gross season. And with Saquon Barkley having the season that he did, and we'll talk about him in a little bit as well, it just made it even worse with Daniel Jones getting cut as well. So yeah, the New York Giants this season, I had them going 5-12. So them going 13-14 and having the 3rd overall pick in the draft is worse than I thought. But hey, it falls within the 2-game limit here. And the team Saquon Barkley went to is next on the list. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley was 100-something yards away from Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. And they were like, you know what, Saquon? We're going to let you rest for the playoffs. You're not going to break the record here. And I think Saquon could have probably gotten that in the first quarter anyways. He was on an absolute heater at that point. It would suck to see him not be able to break the record, but he was dominant in the playoffs. Saquon Barkley was very good in the playoffs. Prior to, it was either the NFC Championship game or prior to the Super Bowl. I can't remember which one. Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, in regards to passing yards and rushing yards, were about 100 yards off. Like, Saquon Barkley was having a crazy playoffs. And the Eagles in general were a crazy team this year. We brought it up, I believe, in the AFC preview with Nick Sirianni being this close to being fired, seemingly being this close to being fired after week 4. They started off 2-2, and then the rest of the year, they rattled off win after win after win, finishing 14-3 on the season. Jalen Hurts didn't have like an insane year in regards to the statistical numbers. Obviously got concussion, so we saw Kenny Pickett go in there. We saw Tanner McKee go in there as well. I got my Stanford quarterbacks mixed around. Mekhi Becton coming in at guard was a great addition there. Offensive line was great as well. A.J. Brown was great. Like, the Eagles were just a great team. Defensively, I mean, we talked about the defensive line, like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith. Like, that, wow, I'm completely blanking. Zach Bond, I don't know why I blanked on Zach Bond. He was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist as well. Then you had, like, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, great rookies in there. Like, everything the Eagles did, barring those first 4 weeks, was great. And they obviously ended up kicking the absolute shit out of the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts had a great game in there as well. Saquon Barkley may have only finished with 50-something yards on 20-plus carries, but that run game, that constant hitting, like, you have to engage in the run game. You can't take a play off in the run game. You're constantly hitting. So to have that, even though he's not breaking off these massive runs, that opened up so much more in the offense, and the Eagles took advantage of that, and again, beat the shit out of the Chiefs. So Super Bowl champion was not where I was expecting them to be. At the start of the year, I thought they'd be a good team. There was a little bit concerns about infighting this offseason as well, so there's a little bit of like hesitation, maybe like withdrawn a little bit about that. So I had them going 10-7. So not anywhere they're 14-3 record or anything, but 10-7 is not a bad record by any stretch. But to where they ended up, it looks a little bit worse than what it is. And then records that are off, let's keep on that track. The Washington Commanders. Jayden Daniels was awesome. That's the long and short of it. Jayden Daniels was freaking ridiculous this year. Dan Quinn, in his first year as Washington head coach, the defense was completely transformed. Again, we brought up Marshawn Lattimore getting traded there this offseason. They were just so damn good. Everything they tried, like, Jayden Daniels was electric as hell, yes. But Terry McLaurin was good as well. The offensive line will need a little bit of work this offseason, that's for sure. They're going to need some more weapons because I think right now it's only Terry McLaurin and Luke McCaffrey. Jayden Daniels had a great rookie season. Easily won Rookie of the Year. They went all the way to the freaking NFC Championship game. Like, this team was just... I thought they'd be good. Just Jayden Daniels being good, but I didn't... Good's... Okay, I got to be careful here because my record prediction was not like 10-3 or 10-7 or something. It was actually 7-10. But given where they were at, I thought there would be a little bit of improvement there. I did still think they needed some room to improve upon because the defense wasn't very good the year before. I thought Dan Quinn by proxy would make it better, but I didn't know how much better he would make it. The offensive line wasn't great, but Jayden Daniels' running ability would make him hard to bring down. Yeah, they finished with an insane 12-5 record. I'm going 7-10. Like, that was not anywhere near my radar this offseason. It really wasn't. Cliff Kingsbury was great as the offensive coordinator. No one's ever questioned Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive play caller. As a head coach, though, he's not great. He's not a great head coach. We've seen that numerous times before in Arizona, Texas Tech, wherever. But offensively, he's in his bag. And Washington proved that this year. They beat the shit out of the Detroit Lions in the divisional round and then got, their cheese clapped by the Philadelphia Eagles in the championship game. But that's not important. But they were fun. There was a fun team. Obviously, had the Hail Mary play against the Chicago Bears as well. So, fun season for Washington. Fun season for them. NFC Championship game. Let's see how they build on it for next year. And then you look at the rest of the NFC East again. Dallas, I had them going 10-7. They finished 7-10. The New York Giants had them going 5-12. They finished 3-14. Then you have the Philadelphia Eagles, who I had going 10-7. They finished 14-3. And then Washington Commanders, 7-10 was my prediction. 12-5 was their final record. Then the final division here, north, south, east, west. I don't know if that's west really, but that's where it felt right. It felt right. But the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray was back. So like we talked about Dan Quinn, by proxy, with Kyler Murray being back, they were going to be better. Like Kyler Murray, pound for pound, is one of the best athletes in the NFL, if not the best athlete. I mean, the dude was a top 10 pick in the MLB draft, and sure, he's had his ebbs and flows throughout his time in the NFL, but the only reason Cliff Kingsbury really lasted as long as he did in the desert was because of Kyler Murray. And you saw plays where Kyler Murray would kind of pull something out of his ass throughout the season, but then at the same time, he'd make some head-scratching play as well. But they were better with Kyler Murray under center. Again, that was obvious that they were going to be like that. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a good year. He didn't have a bad year by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think he had the year that a lot of people were expecting from him at the beginning of the season. Like, drafted 4th overall, he had all this hype, Maserati Marv, all that stuff, and he just didn't eclipse, like, look at Malik Neighbors this year, or Ladd McConkey. He didn't have one of those 1,000-plus yard seasons, but it wasn't a bad season again. Jonathan Gannon he's doing better than what I think I and everybody else initially thought he would be when he first got down the desert. If you remember that video of him going like pew, 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 when talking to Rondale Moore.
Good. Shots. Explosives. You can run.
Like, those types of videos and those types of things, like, that's the new head coach. Oh, okay. We'll see how this one works out for him, but they were middle of the road in the league in sacks this year. Darius Robinson, he missed some time, their second pick in the first round last year. He missed time to a different assortment of things this past year, but they were a fine team. I thought what did I have them? I had to go in 7-10. They finished 8-9. So, I mean, we're in with that 2-game limit right there, but they were fine. They weren't great. They weren't necessarily that bad, but they weren't good either. Like, it was just a weird season, but we'll see how they build on for next year. Next team here, Los Angeles Rams. Good team. Overall, just a good team. Like, I've loved the way that they have approached the draft these past couple of years. They've been acing their past couple of drafts, especially on the defensive side of the ball as well. You look at Kobe Turner was a defensive rookie year, the finalist the year prior. Then this year, you had two of them. Braden Fisk and Jared Verse from Florida State. Jared Verse obviously ended up winning the damn thing. Like, they just have done really well in the draft and accumulating this young talent, which is something that a lot of people, and including myself for a certain extent, thought they were not going to do because they just sold their soul to win the Super Bowl. Like, they got older, they didn't have any draft picks, but they won the Super Bowl. But now they're competing again. They surely lost in the divisional round to the Philadelphia Eagles, but they had chances to win that game. They did have chances to win that game, and they battled injuries throughout the course of the year, especially at the beginning. But once they got into form, it was like, this is a damn good football team. Matt Stafford had flashes this year. Obviously, Kyron Williams did his thing. Puka Nacua did his thing. Like, the Rams were just a good team. And it sucks that they had to fall the way they did to the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs. But given how they started the year, and then that insane game against the Bills, latter parts of the season, they were fun. They were fun. And then not after that game, because after that game, it felt like they couldn't score anything. I don't know, they scored over 20 points once that last bit after the Bills games. Like, they blew their load against the Bills. They couldn't do it ever again. It's like, why was that there? Yeah, oh my goodness, that's not important here. But the Rams I had going 11-6. They finished 10-7. So, yeah, it was a good season. Good season for the Rams. I'm intrigued to see what they do with their big players this year. Obviously, they've told Cooper Kupp he can seek a trade, or that they're going to trade him. Matt Stafford, kind of a similar thing. They're looking for trades there. Apparently, he ran into Tom Brady in Montana at a ski resort, so definitely not tampering right there. But hey, who knows? I don't know. Maybe they did just run into somebody. Like, I run into my friends while on ski resorts all the time who also happen to be millionaires. So I do it all the time, so I understand where they're coming from. But if Matt Stafford stays in LA, it'd be kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I'd be surprised or not. Per reports, it looks like he's gone. But Sean McVay wants to keep him, which makes a lot of sense. And apparently the reports suggest they're fine with keeping Garoppolo as a starter, which is just blatantly a lie. So I would expect if that's the case, then Jackson Dart will probably end up in LA. Because remember, he was at USC. He was at USC before he went down to Ole Miss. So maybe he goes over there. But yeah, 10-7 was their final record. 11-6 was my prediction. The San Francisco 49ers, sorry. This team, we talk about injuries. This team was that. This team was just battered and bruised pretty much the entire year. Christian McCaffrey, after the dominating season that he had, everybody drafting him first overall in fantasy football, he goes back to form and gets hurt. And then gets hurt again. And then gets hurt again. It was just every single week he'd come back, and then now he's out again. Brock Purdy played all right. I guess given the circumstances that were going on in San Francisco, like Deebo Samuel missed time, Ayuk had that whole fiasco this offseason as well. They just were, they battled injuries and they just weren't consistent enough throughout the course of the year. That's the best way I could put it. That's the best way I could put it. I thought the Niners would be one of the best teams in the league. I mean, they just went to the freaking Super Bowl. They had one of the best rosters on paper in the entire league. And I'm not saying that as a joke like I did with the New York Jets, the Dolphins. No, they have one of the best rosters. It just didn't click this year. And the injuries didn't help anything in here. I had them going 12-5, which is on par with the Detroit Lions, which I thought was a team they could compete with. And they finished 7-10. So that's not ideal. And then a team I also had, I predicted to finish 7-10 and finish with a better record was the Seattle Seahawks. I just thought they'd take a little dip. Pete Carroll was finally gone. They brought in Mike McDonald from the Baltimore Ravens, who was a good defensive coach. And I had decent hopes for him as a head coach. They brought in Ryan Grubb as well from Washington, who I think the reason he was fired pretty much is because of the fact they just had different philosophies of how they were going to attack things. Ryan Grubb wanted to throw the ball. Mike McDonald's a defensive head coach. He wants to run. Jackson Smith-Njigba had a fantastic season this year. Geno Smith had a good year as well, but they were pretty much a pass-first type of team, and again, that's why Grubb ended up having to go. And the Seahawks, I just thought they'd dip a little bit. I thought they would, and they just didn't do that. So 10-7 was their final record, tied with the Los Angeles Rams. Shame they didn't make the playoffs, but I had them going 7-10. It's not ideal. Not an ideal record prediction, but that's the NFC West. So again, we had Arizona Cardinals going 8-9. They finished 7-10. The Rams, they finished with an 11-6 record. They finished with a 10-7 record. Sorry, I had them going 11-6. San Francisco 49ers I had going 12-5. They finished 7-10, and the Seattle Seahawks I had going 7-10. They finished 10-7. So those are our NFC predictions right there. And because we didn't go over this in the AFC video, we did this in the NFC preview video, was go over the playoff predictions and go over the awards as well. So scroll down here on my computer and I look at my playoff predictions. So the AFC, we had the Bengals as the 5 seed playing the Texans. So the Texans were a 4 seed. They were the 4 seed. They did not play the Bengals. They obviously played the Chargers, dominated that game. You got the Bills and the Jets. I thought the Jets would be a little bit better than what they were. I didn't think they'd challenge for the division or anything, but I thought they'd at least be a playoff team. The Bills ended up not being the 3 seed. They were the 2 seed. I have Baltimore there playing the Dolphins. So out of those predictions, every team that I had is the 5, 6, 7 seed. They didn't make the playoffs. And obviously the 5 seed was the Chargers, 6 seed was the Steelers, 7 seed was the Denver Broncos. Bengals should have. If they didn't treat September like it wasn't real, they should have probably made the playoffs, but didn't. Miami didn't. Jets didn't. I'm laughing all the way to the bank with the Jets and Dolphins, but the divisional round that everybody wanted, Bills, Ravens, and Bengals, Chiefs. Obviously, the Bills and Ravens did end up playing the playoffs, but the Bills ended up winning that game. Predicted that here as well. The Chiefs and Bengals, I mean, I had the 5 seed winning in my preseason predictions against the Texans and in my postseason prediction on the podcast. And the Texans won both those games. Chiefs still won that game. Bills, Chiefs in the AFC Championship game in Kansas City, sorry. And I predicted the Bills to win because I'm stupid and I expect other things to happen every single year. Because it wouldn't be the Bills to lose 4 straight games. It wouldn't be that. But had the Bills going to the Super Bowl, the NFC side of things, Rams versus Falcons. Falcons didn't make the playoffs. Packers versus Cowboys would have been a fun rematch for the season prior in the Eagles and Lions, which could have been the NFC Championship game, but the Lions decided not to show up against the Washington Commanders. Then in that one, so the Falcons didn't make the playoffs, Cowboys didn't make the playoffs. Only 2 didn't make the playoffs, so I'll take it. I will take it. And then if you look at the divisional round, the 2 teams that didn't make the playoffs, I had it losing anyways. So I knew they were going to be very, very good. But the divisional round, Rams, Lions, Matt Stafford versus Jared Goff revenge game. Always a fun one. And the Packers and 49ers had the Packers winning that game and going up against the Lions. We had a divisional game in the championship, and I had the Lions winning because I had the Super Bowl that everybody wanted, Bills-Lions. And I don't know if, as a fan, if I could have stomached that. Like, I watched the Detroit Lions go 0-16. So it's like the 0-16 Lions, the first ever 0-16 team in NFL history versus a team that lost 4 straight Super Bowls. And it's like, it doesn't really get much better than that. So I had the Bills and Lions. I had the Bills winning. I believe I had Josh Allen winning the MVP of that. Doesn't really go crazy to say that was the Super Bowl MVP. But the playoff predictions, not ideal, not terrible either. Not terrible. The Jets and Dolphins ones are kind of bringing that one down a little bit. But the award predictions, MVP, Josh Allen, finally got that. I think I've been saying that for like 3 or 4 years in a row now. I don't remember how long I've been saying that one. Offensive Player of the Year, Tyreek Hill. No, not even close. Not even close, Tyreek Hill. Yeah, just not close. Not close. Saquon Barkley ran away with that one. Literally ran away with that one. So, yeah, Defensive Player of the Year, Micah Parsons. Good player, but no, not Defensive Player of the Year. That obviously ended up being Pat Surtain. Deserving player of that as well. Did not play great in the game against the Bills in the playoffs, but still won the Defensive Player of the Year, and he deserved that. Rookie of the Year, Caleb Williams. Thought it would be, but it was Jay Daniels, so the second overall pick, not the first overall pick, so we'll move. And the Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jared Verse. I'll take it. I will freaking take Jared Verse going there. I love that pick from Florida State. I love that they paired him with Braden Fisk as well. I thought that was very smart. Comeback Player of the Year, Aaron Rodgers. No, that one ended up being Joe Burrow. I think I toyed back and forth between Joe Burrow and Aaron Rodgers, but ended up going with Rodgers, and the Jets sucked. So I'm not mad at that one. And then Coach of the Year, Raheem Morris. Given Arthur Smith and what they were doing down in Atlanta, I thought if Raheem Morris got them to a division title, then that would get him Coach of the Year. Obviously did not end up happening. But hey, I'm not mad at those predictions. I did only get 2 of them right, which sucks for accuracy's sake, but I'm not mad at those predictions. Tyreek Hill's really bringing that one down. Tyreek Hill sucked ass this year, comparatively sucked ass. So, yeah, those are our NFC predictions. Those are our award predictions, our playoff predictions, all of that stuff. Make sure to check out the AFC recap video down in the description below. I've obviously linked it as well on the screen here for you, hopefully anyways. But, yeah, make sure to check out all the links down below in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Make sure to check out the podcast on there. Make sure to check out the blog post as well at theloganblackmanshow.com. Mock Draft 2.0 will be out for you on Monday, so make sure you stay tuned for that. The video will be out on Saturday, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video as well. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I sincerely apologize. I'll try to be better next time. I've, of course, been Logan Blackman. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys later. Peace.